Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma and I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to talk about that thing that happens when people disappoint you. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set. Hello, Kisma.
Well, hello there, Nick. What's going on?
Busy day.
You had a busy day. You just finished a webinar over here at our offices in Common Grounds. Carlsbad, giving you a shout out.
Yeah, I did. And I'm really excited about it. It's a brand new webinar that I've been working for months on, and I'm just starting to really roll it out, bringing people into energy mastery and really talking about health and some big challenges with the system. So yeah, it's been quite a work in progress, but man, I'm super fired up about it.
Yeah, and people are very receptive. This, for those of you that don't know, Nick is the president of Energy Mastery. I'm going to be doing my certification training with the lovely Siobhan Moran in New York City at the end of March. That's coming up.
Super exciting.
Yeah, we got some amazing souls attending, and it's one of the premium energetic technologies I know both of us use day in and day out with ourselves and our clients.
Every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in fact, I would say, this tool, this energy has helped us to, at least I can speak for myself, handle those moments that I know so many people out there have. And that is when people in our lives disappoint us.
Yeah.
And
It
happens. And I've been hearing about this from other people. I know I've gone through a couple of interesting experiences these past few months. And it's kind of like when, we have people in our lives and we expect them to be a certain way. And they're even doing that, they're being that human that we thought they are. And then something goes south. And this can be one of the most, I feel, disconcerting things to go through because relationships are important. And for those of you that listen, I know that relationships are important to you. And so when someone kind of pulls the rug out from underneath you, it's almost shocking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It can be a shock.
It can be a shock. Sure. And I know that it's something that can, if we don't look at it a certain way, it can create a residue that taints how we approach relationships in the future.
It can. Yeah, people become jaded and cynical and
lose trust.
Yeah. And that's something that once it's destroyed with one person, it can be very difficult to have that with others as well. Mm-hmm. And gosh, how can you have any kind of relationship without trust?
And then the question is, do you ever have full trust?
Can you ever have full trust after something like that happens? And that's, there's a lot of different layers to that. I think it's important for everybody to know that we're having this conversation today, especially in the personal growth realm. You see kind of two different shades of this. There's the people that get super deep into their dark stories and use that in their own ways to do that. We're not obviously really all about that, but there's the other side of that where people tend to hide some of the struggles that they have and because it would really reveal a flaw in the system or something like that. It's not really about that. For Kisma and I can speak for myself, but I think we'd agree on this is just something that we don't really focus on. We're very solution oriented, so we don't spend a time dwelling in that, but that doesn't mean that we don't have those things come up for us. And we just thought it might be valuable to dive into a few of the things that have happened,
I mean, I know with my private clients, I always like to be transparent. I find that they're like, wait, what? You went through that? And yes, I mean, we're human. We're on this planet. We're living this life. And as we've said a dozen times, the one thing that we know for sure is that life is always changing. There's ups and downs and all arounds and sideways and this and that. So yes, we've definitely had our share of experiences and disappointments.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And, for me, when I look at that, just recently having a mentor, someone that I really, really adored and cared about, go south, so to speak. I'm not sure what that person's perception is of what
I
they're
almost
doing.
feel like that does a disservice to South.
Yeah, right.
This person really went off the rails.
Sideways, I should say. Off the rails, sideways. Yeah, and just without getting into to details, because it's everybody's experience will be different with different humans. It can be soul crushing in a way. And I know for me what I had to do, and I think I'm hoping this is applicable for any of you that have experienced a hurt, a break, a sever in any kind of relationship. The saving point for anyone is to be able to look at what was good about that relationship, like to focus on whether it's the wins, the joys, the love, the connection. Because when we're only focusing on the hurt and the pain and what we feel like may be a great disservice, that's what we're actually going to create more of. That's what builds, that's what increases.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously the point of this is not to roll anybody under the bus or to. No,
I'm not going to get into the drama and the soap story of it now.
To get all around that. But it's important to recognize that this person was a teacher and somebody that, you really looked up to and admired in many ways. And I think that piece alone is really worth exploring a little bit, because that's a very unique relationship, so for you, did you see it all at once? Was there like a moment where it was just like, whoa, that happened? Or was it one little thing by one? Yeah,
I think that's great. And it's something that we can, again, use in any relationship. To me, there's always going to be those red flags, those things that come up where you're like, is that person okay? Or, this seems a little odd. Or, I remember him or her saying something different before. The red flags are there. And, just keeping a pulse on it, not being overly upset or critical, but just noticing. And then there's a point, there's a great teaching. The Bhagavad Gita is like, you take the teaching and the teacher is human, right? So it's not about the human. It's about the teachings that are coming through. And this is something I have always really looked at with anybody that I've worked with, because it's true. We're all human and we're going to have flaws. We're going to have reactions and all of those things. Yet there will be a point where you have to pull the plug because it's gone so erroneous. It's not okay.
Yeah, it becomes not okay.
It becomes not okay.
That line. But that's a really interesting point you give up, is like, okay, well, we don't want to be critical and judgmental towards others, because that's not good for a relationship. You're going to have healthier and more ease in your relationships when you're looking at what are the positive qualities here? What is the common ground that we really relate on? So you don't want to get into that end of it, but when the red flags come up, it can be a little difficult. Right. And so did you know, like, as they were coming up, like, how did you log those in your mind?
It just goes back into, okay, that happened. It's sort of like, like a file, from the intellect, and noticing. Yet when we're leading a relationship with love and respect, I think one of the human aspects, and I would love to hear from our listeners out there if you've ever done this, one of the human aspects is I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. And focusing.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. Like, I guess what I want to say is I would rather give someone the benefit of the doubt again and again and again than just be cutting them off and accusing them or whatever. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I was always able to be like, oh, but I learned this and this was good. And look at the things that did work. Yet again, when there comes a point, we have to make that decision. The intellect inserts and he's like, okay, something is not right. And for whatever situation any of you have been in, there will be certain results or certain consequences or things that have happened where they're tangible. Whether it's an argument, whether it's a physical thing, whether it's money, a thing, there's something. And that's when, in my mind, it's like, okay, assess, cut it, cut the cord, cut the relationship, Be grateful for what has existed that was good. Always be grateful for that and let go of the bad.
Well, now you're a very intuitive person, and it's something that really inspires me, is the way that you follow your intuition. Did you find yourself using that benefit of the doubt to kind of negotiate away
Of course.
some of the intuitive hits?
Yeah. I really do think I did that, probably just because of, the relationship, the love, the respect for this person is, I could have listened to intuition a lot, but also I want to say, because this is important, beginning to look at what nuance of the relationship isn't working and what nuance or realm or facet of the relationship is working. Because I think that's an important piece as well, especially when we're talking about a teacher or a mentor or a coach or whomever. Is like, sometimes you're still receiving good information.
Right.
As sometimes one is benefiting continuously as another aspect of it might be going sideways. And so it's weighing, well, am I still benefiting in a way that I want from this relationship?
Interesting.
Right? Because there's so many different facets and iterations of a human being and of a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, the benefit of it, and there is the part of it where, okay, when you're in a relationship, it really is about service, towards that other person. But at the end of the day, in the world and in our lives, there is a give and take. There's a receive there as well. And to be aware of like what you're actually getting from that relationship. And when that gets out of kilter,
right,
it becomes a real problem.
Right.
There
Absolutely.
should be a natural give and take, like in our own personal relationship, when, just between the two of us.
When I sit down and you just make dinner every single night and I don't do anything?
As long as we're having the vulnerable episode. No, we think about that. It's like, okay, well, if one of us was really serving the other fully and the other person is just off in their own world, that's not going to feel like, it's not going to feel right. And it's not going to be a proper exchange.
Exactly.
I think the most healthy situation, and certainly we've been through, challenges with this ourselves, but the most healthy situation is where each person is really showing up fully in that relationships in service. To really serve from their highest and best for that person's highest and best. That's the ideal.
It is an ideal.
That's the ideal.
It does not always happen.
It does not always happen.
And to be fair, this is something I want all of our listeners to think about. At different points in time, we're seeing through a different lens.
Oh, that's a really good
point. So if for some reason, say those of you out there working with a coach or a trainer, or you're an athlete and you have different coaches and you're paying them, there's an energetic exchange. You're paying them and they're teaching you, they're coaching you. Yet if you're in a worn down or toxic state, and you're not able to see everything you're receiving, there can then be this sense of resistance, or I'm not getting this, or I'm not getting enough. And it turns into self-pity or self-absorption.
Yeah, exactly.
So we really have to, at times, trust those people that we've invested in and just be like, okay, right at this moment, maybe something is off and I'm not feeling I'm getting, but trust the process. We've heard that before, trust the process. And I'm a big one on that, because I know that, if you're working with someone for spiritual growth or personal growth, there is a process and it can be somewhat painful.
There is a process.
Yet I know that there will be a defining moment or a point of decision where one has to understand, if you're going to cut the relationship, it's because that energetic exchange is out of integrity. Absolutely, for sure. And it sometimes means you have to bring another person in to borrow their intellect, to say, hey, this is what's going on.
Sure. An objective perspective.
Right. Not out of self-pity, not out of self-absorption. Just like, I need to borrow your intellect. This is what's happening. I'm too much in it. I'm in the problem. I don't necessarily see the solution. And that's fair. That's like a different perspective.
Yeah. Or I think I see the solution, but I really want to make sure I'm keeping myself accountable here, and that I'm not getting caught up with this. And it needs to be somebody truly objective, somebody who's not invested in you personally or in the situation, because otherwise there's a really big likelihood of them getting caught up into the drama of it. And that's just going to spin everything out.
Right.
That objective perspective is really helpful.
Right. Exactly.
In a personal relationship, that's not always easy to have.
No, in a personal relation. And as well to share, if you're going through something personal, one must be careful to not go and blab it to too many people. Because that as well is putting fuel on the fire, Yeah, energy goes where thought flows. So yes, you want your trusted few that you can have a conversation. Yet if you're constantly complaining about a marriage or a relationship or whatever, you're going to fuel that, whatever you're complaining about. And then people will hop on board and be like, yes. And then possibly you'll miss that light of opportunity to heal it or make it better.
Yeah.
So it's tricky, we have a few people that we can really trust and not blab the negative all over the place, or to simply be able to ask someone, I really need a conversation. I'm going to hold the space and be objective as much as I can, but that's why you're here. Mm-hmm. So it sets the tone instead of, I just can't believe what he did. And then there's a whole bunch of anger and annoyance, and it's not so cool.
That's not good. Mm-hmm. Your dad was one of those people for you.
Yeah, definitely. He was very objective. He could listen and just absorb it and not necessarily, react right away, but just gave many points of view.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My dad did that for me too. I anymore, like one of the things that my parents raised me to be was really independent, so I don't find myself going there as often as maybe even I could. Mm-hmm. But I tell you, every time I go to my dad and I need something, like that, he's really on it.
That's cool.
It just takes a step anchor. Back and really helps me walk through some of the different scenarios and things like that. And certainly I have, other mentors and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, not a lot, there's a few trusted people, but my dad's one of them. And I just think that's really cool. Shout out to my dad for that one. And shout out to your dad.
Yeah.
Wherever he may be. Yeah. I so wish I could have met him.
Yeah, he's so
many
cool.
great stories.
So great. So I want to share a couple things to help listeners who may be going through something like that, or you've experienced it. It was sort of my wish list. Like, I wish I'd done this sooner. And really, you're hearing me talk about the pros and the cons, the benefits, what isn't right. Going into the past is for learning, right? So this isn't, I'm not carrying resentment or regret or feeling bad. It's really about learning, like, okay, what could I have done differently to get through this faster, or maybe have the wake up call sooner? I think it's putting things on paper. We hear that, write the pros and cons, and it sounds kind of, yeah, right. Honestly, if we can get stuff out of our brain and on paper, there's a different relationship with the emotions and what's happening.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's why journaling is really effective for people too. It's like you just dump it out of your head. But whatever that is that's rolling around up there, like what the mind does is it wraps itself into the problem.
It totally does. So, and then it stays in the problem.
Exactly. And then it traps it. It's like a web almost, where it wraps itself up in there, and it really can get embedded. Now, vis-a-vis some of the energy mastery things and other tools that we have access to, those things don't tend to get wrapped up as much, but you can be sure that when you don't take that time to get it out, that the mind, that is what the mind will do.
Right.
It will wrap itself into the problem. So that's an awesome one.
Did
you
it on
do that?
Paper. I didn't. That's why I'm saying this is kind of my wish list.
Your wish list of you wish you would have. Or I thought maybe you did it, but not too soon enough.
I just didn't do it. But when I'm, part of this whole process for all of you too is like reflect, what is it that I did to create this and attract it? And that's a tough question. And reflecting and looking at all, had I just gotten stuff out of my head and on paper, not with a lot of emotional charge, but just to see, okay, here's what was working, here's what isn't, and take that higher viewpoint, I probably would have seen things quicker.
Yeah, that's a good point. As your partner, I'll have to be honest and say that a part of me feels a little responsible for maybe not stepping in.
Well, you didn't save the day, Mr. Nick. What's going on there?
Not to save the day.
No, you guys don't want someone saving the day.
But to step in more firmly and to maybe question a little bit more firmly some of the things, because I did notice a little bit where some of those things would come up, and I would notice you explain them away, And my initial thoughts were really like, it's the Kisma, man. Like she's super intuitive. Like, I really like you're the most trusted person to me
speechless.
in the world. I am kind of, I was like, I'm trying to think, is she the most? Yes, you're the most trusted person to me in the world. Like I truly trust your decisions and your thinking and everything like that. And so I didn't do that. And there's a part of me that was like, feels a little responsible for that part.
Well, it doesn't help to feel responsible. Yeah. Put things on paper.
Extreme ownership. And the other thing, and this piece I really want to help people, trust yourself in knowing that if someone's in your life and you think you can't do it without them, you're wrong. Whoa.
This is the biggest one.
That's a Kismet truth bomb.
It really is. Whether they're a teacher, a mentor, a relationship, if things are going sideways and you're hanging on because you think you can't do it without them, get out. That's a sign. Like when that thought comes in, like, well, I'm just going to hang on because I don't think I can without. No. Now there are obviously there's mentor coach relationships where you need that person. You want that person to elevate you, move you forward.
And kind of like you said before, is like, don't bail too soon.
Don't bail too soon. Like this is, I'm talking about the toxicity.
Yep.
And when something's going on and you're like kind of explaining it away or hoping it changes, you got to trust yourself that you will have the backing, you will have the resources, your guides, your teachers, your angels, they're going to come in and help you get through it.
That's a really good one.
And I think that's something that when I reflect back, like I knew it, I just didn't act upon that soon enough. I think there was a tether of like, well, I don't know, this person's helped me so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And here we are.
And here we are. And so, and that would bring me to the final piece. Like those were the two things. Oh man, had I done that? I don't know. Like the past is for learning. But here's the moving forward, everyone, is when things go awry, when things go sideways, there is always something to learn. And so again, it's like looking back and appreciating, what did I learn? What was beneficial? What am I so grateful for? Because that overshadows whatever we're calling bad or perceived bad or challenge or wrong. And I'm just such a firm believer, because when we focus on that piece, the goodness of it, the positivity, of course, we're going to attract more of that. When we're focused on, oh, this went wrong and this person, that's our vibe, man. And that vibe is going to attract somebody else or some other instance or situation that doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Right. So the focus and the perception and really having the gratitude for even the experience. Because when we go through an experience that feels funky and wonky and really challenging, there's resiliency that is built. As you're seeing yourself through it and getting to the other side, you're developing strength. Have gratitude for that. And when there's darkness, man, there's light.
Yeah.
And those dark moments, when we can really be diligent about seeing somewhere there's a crack where the light shines through, and that light is so welcome, that's definitely something to be grateful for.
In the last few minutes here, I want to cover just one last topic. It's something that's kind of personal to me, and I'm curious about how you related to it, which was, okay, so you saw this, you made some choices that you wish you hadn't in certain ways. Did self-disappointment come up for you? And if so, what did, how did you handle that part of it?
Yeah, that's really great. Is, honestly, like when I go back, I think I'm more disappointed on the outcome than the actual choices.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the choices at the moment were sound and exciting and purposeful. I'm disappointed by the outcome. So when I turn that, and reflect back, it would have to be that, well, I didn't make the choices I did, but I did. So I can't say that I would even do it differently.
Interesting.
Yeah, really interesting.
Okay.
Would I have, let me put it this way, would I have taken different steps after those choices are made to be heard more, to be more firm? Yes. That's what, when I look back, I'm like, that's what I could have done differently.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I see.
And it's just not, there's no point going through the whole story for it. It's just,
we'll do that whole thing
later.
The names will be changed to protect.
The names will be changed. Yeah, it'll be a really good one. But just for now, it's like, yeah, certain choices I wouldn't have done differently. Actions following that, I would have.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
And so the self-disappointment is, yes, of course. I think when we lose something, when we feel taken advantage of, it's like, oh man. Yet at the end of the day, to me, the more important thing is don't give up, don't stop, don't let something like this derail your life, your business, your career. It's not worth it.
Yep.
And keep going forward because the lesson will provide gold.
Yep. You'll make the money back. You'll invite somebody new into your life.
Yeah.
Whatever
was
it is,
lost, it will come back when you just really have that attitude. Okay, what did I learn? What is it that I do to keep going, not to lose, and just keep benefiting from what I do right now?
Yeah, yeah. And I really appreciate your attitude of just like, it'll come back tenfold.
Yeah, for sure.
Just tenfold. No,
for sure.
No question. Mm-hmm. I ask that because, that's one that's personal to me, as long as we're having the vulnerable episode, is self-disappointment. Mm-hmm. That's something that comes up for me in my life of just maybe pushing myself harder than I should at times, and things.
Don't use those should words.
Things not. Well, let's be honest though. Like there is a threshold, and that is when I say should, I mean it's like it's not really honoring that boundary.
Yeah.
So I think that's appropriate use of the word. And then then if things don't work out the way, it's like, oh, like that that's one thing that'll come up to me that I'm consistently working on and looking at. And, I don't know if I'm alone in that. I'm probably
I
not,
doubt that you are.
But I just think that like, that's a really interesting topic when you talk about disappointment. It's like, okay. And this is something that I've noticed transition for myself is that the more of that I solve in myself, then the easier I am with other people.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really important piece because if you're walking around judging yourself, being super hard on yourself, pushing yourself really hard, even if you're not doing that overtly to other people, that energy is behind that and they'll feel pressurized by just being around you.
Exactly.
And that is a killer for teams. It's a killer for relationships. It's really tough to be around that. So I get that, and it's something that I think is really important. And the more that I've solved that for myself, and this is a work in progress, but the more that I've solved that for myself, what I've realized also is that I'm able to have and hold a space for somebody's higher good, right? Really what their potential is, and also have very low expectations.
Oh, that's nice.
Right? Very low expectation
cool.
because whenever I look at somebody like that, I'm like, you're a human being.
Yeah. Hashtag human, baby kids.
Human beings are very surprising.
Right.
And so
true.
That potential for them to go down into the lower aspects of their personality, that's there for any human.
It truly is.
And so, it's not like you want to have like minimal expectations of every single person, but at the end of the day, like that is, you recognize that there is a range that personality expresses through, and absolutely hold the space for that highest, but they're a human being, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's really important.
Yeah, well, I hope this helps. I'd love to hear from any of you who've had stories of disappointment, how you handled it. Hopefully this episode helps you as well. So email us, info@sourcemovement.com, and share this with someone that you think might benefit. And stay tuned for next week. It'll be our 100th episode, and we're going to be talking about gratitude. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Much love.
Namaste.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.